Dear students of BA Part 1 English Honours, at first I wish you a very warm morning to all of you. Dear students, because of this deadly pandemic, you know, our offline classes are off and our online classes are on. From time to time, we teachers are sending you people videos through our YouTube channels, guiding you people in different subjects. You know, I am a worker in the department of English, so I have been sending you my videos through my YouTube channel in the field of English, and it's a long time after that I have decided once again to help you remember the often heard, the often taught and often described story of the scholar Gypsy, written by great and brilliant poet of the late Victorian age, Matthew Arnold. In my previous videos also, I have tried my level best to provide to you the very short story, the very gist of the scholar Gypsy, in which you have been told or you have been taught that a scholar Gypsy was first published in 1853. It is an elegy, and my dear students, my dear friends, you know what an elegy is. Poetry is of different kinds, it has different stanza forms. It is written in a different mode or different style. It describes various things. It has different themes rather. To according to their themes, according to their style, structure, format, it has been described into different categories, into different groups. It has been given different names, like sonnet, like ballad, like epic poems, and so many and many more, so on so forth. Elegy is among them. Elegy is a poem in which the poet mourns, mourns. Mourns means शोक मनाना, दुख व्यक्त करना. When we mourn, when we express our sorrow, when we express our tribute, when we render our tribute. It is only when we lose something. It is only when a person dies we pay our tribute. We mourn at the death of that particular person, at the loss of that particular thing. Shok Geet, elegy in Hindi is known as Shok Geet. So there are different poets like Shelley, Milton, Gray, Thomas Gray, Matthew Arnold. These poets have written elegies. So in English literature, there is a very, very rich tradition of writing elegies. There is a very rich tradition. Many poets, as I have mentioned, one more name in the field of elegy writing is our great Lord Tennyson. He has written In Memoriam. So there is a very, very rich tradition. There are plethora of poets who have displayed their elegiac theme in their poetry. Here also, in the poem The Scholar Gypsy, the poet is expressing his loss rather. The poet is mourning the loss of the scholar who, being fed up with his poverty, leaves his leaves his university. He was reading in Oxford University. He leaves his studies, he leaves his university, he leaves his friends. And he was a very, very promising student. He was a meritorious student. His mind was pregnant with ideas. He was a very bright and brilliant student. But the only problem was that he was very poor. And it is very impossible to carry on the study on the crutch of help. He did so. He got some help from his friend, but it was impossible for him to carry on his studies. Therefore, he leaves his studies and joins the bands of gypsies. He was very much impressed with their life. He saw them leading their life gaily, happily, handsomely, in limited resources. No doubt, they had not much bank balance. They had not well-built house to live in. They had not so many comforts and cozy items to enjoy. They were, of course, hand to mouth, living in open fields, under open sky, sometimes in tamboos made of plastic sheets. Always besieged with sorrow and danger. Still, they were found laughing. They were found smiling. They were found singing. The scholar gets impressed. He tries to know. He decides to know. He desires to know the reason behind their happiness, behind their smile, behind their laughing. There must be something, there must be some reason behind their smiling. The scholar decides or desires to know the art of their living. How to lead a very happy life. How to lead a life with satisfaction. How to lead a life having sweet contentment. So he joins the band of gypsies and never comes back to this world. Means once he goes to the world of gypsies and he remains there, he does not come back. You must be remembering one more fact, that this story has its source from Glanvill's Vanity of Dogmatizing, which was published in 1661. But there is a great difference between these two works. That means the work of Glanvill, that is Vanity of Dogmatizing, which was published in 1661, and the Scholar Gypsy, written by or composed by Matthew Arnold, and which was published in 1853. While the earlier work, it means the work of Glanville, that is the Vanity of Dogmatizing, is not an elegy, Matthew Arnold's work, The Scholar Gypsy, which was published in 1853, is an elegy. Of course, the difference between these two works is crystal clear, is quite clear. Since Glanvill's work, Vanity of Dogmatizing, is not an elegy, and why is it not an elegy? However, the story of these two texts, of these two works, are the same. The story is the same. Glanville also describes a scholar. Arnold does the same. Glanville's scholar is brilliant, bright, promising. So is Arnold's scholar. Glanville's scholar is poor, poverty-stricken, and so is Arnold's scholar. Glanville's scholar is fed up with his poverty, and here the case of Matthew Arnold's scholar is the same. He too, it means the scholar of Glanville also leaves his पढ़ाई लिखाई, means also leaves his studies. He leaves his university, and so does the scholar of Matthew Arnold in his work, The Scholar Gypsy. But what is the difference? The very difference is this, that The scholar of vanity of dogmatizing comes back. The scholar of vanity of dogmatizing means the scholar of Glanville also joins the band of gypsies, and so is done by the scholar of Arnold in the Scholar Gypsy. But the very crystal difference between these two works is this, that Glanville's scholar comes back to the world which he has left, and hence this work is not an elegy, because there is no loss. The poet there does not lose any character. He is a hero. He is a scholar. So it is not a matter of mourning. mourning. It's not a matter of mourning. It is not a matter of shedding tears. It is not a matter of expressing one's heartfelt sorrow. It's not a matter of offering floral tribute. But the case of the scholar of Arnold is quite opposite, is quite different. He leaves this world, he joins the world of gypsies, having a desire to have their sacred knowledge how to make life pleasant, how to lead a handsome, healthy, hilarious life, even in scarcity. But he does not come back. Therefore, it is a case of loss. It is a case of losing something. It is the loss of a scholar. Here the poet Arnold loses his scholar. Therefore, he sheds tears. Therefore, he mourns. It is therefore he becomes sad. It is therefore he offers floral tribute. And it is why the Scholar Gypsy is an elegy. And the Scholar Gypsy is a pastoral elegy, because it describes the story of the countryside area. It describes natural beauty. It describes the courtyards. It describes the meadows. It describes the sheep and shepherds. It describes the moors. It describes the boats and rivers. It talks of the gentle breeze. It talks of the village. It talks of the countryside area. Therefore, the background of this poem is villatic. And it's why it is a pastoral elegy. And I remember in my previous video, I have discussed to you people some of its stanzas. There are 25 stanzas in the poem, and as I remember, we have gone through some of the stanzas. And now if you have the book, please open your book and turn to the stanza number 12. In autumn, on the skirts of Begley wood, the search of the scholar is on. Why is the poet searching? The poet is searching on some speculation, on the basis of some rumors which hung in that particular area. It is said that the scholar in the dress of the gypsies, it means the robes or the dress which is worn by the gypsies. The scholar in that get-up, in that particular dress, has been seen wandering or roaming, R-O-A-M-I-N-G. The word roaming is very easy for you people to understand, because all of you use mobile, and when we go to different or other state, there you have to pay the roaming charge, and you say, sir, my mobile has gone in the roaming. So here the scholar has been seen roaming, R-O-A-M-I-N-G, roaming in that particular area, and he has been seen sometimes by a grown-up man, sometimes by an old man, sometimes by the ladies, and sometimes by the small kids or small children playing outside in the fields. So upon the basis of the information, however, the information is not solid one. All these things are the speculations, guesswork. No one is dead sure. No one is quite sure. It is just a guessing. Yeah, I had seen such and such type of person, such and such type of person. Yeah, I have also seen. Yeah, I too have seen. But the scholar, upon or on the basis of all these information, starts searching the scholar. He has a good mind to have a look of the scholar, to meet the scholar, to talk with the scholar. So he starts the search work, and in that search operation he takes the help of the persons, means the shepherds, because that area is inlived or by the shepherds. So he takes the help of the shepherds, and he is searching the scholar in different areas where the scholar has been noticed. Here also in stanza number 12, he says, in autumn, the poet tells, in autumn on the skirts of Begley wood. Wood means forest, Begli is the name of the forest. So it is said that in the autumn season, the scholar was seen roaming beside the Begli wood, where most gypsies by the turf-edged way pitch their smoked tents, and every bush you see with a scarlet patches, fact and shred of grey above the forest ground called Thestle. Here is the word Thestle, and it is a hill above the earth, above the field. And the poet says that in autumn season, that place is loved or liked by the gypsies. Gypsies pitch their tent there. They pitch their makeshift home there, made of plastic sheets, tents, and tamboos, and they spend their days and night there. Of course, food is a very necessary item, necessary thing. You can't live for a long time without food. So the ladies in that group cook, and when they cook, it is obvious they light their oven, that is their chulha, makeshift chulha made of bricks. Sometimes they make their oven by digging the earth in a particular way. They are burning charcoals or wood. Pieces of wood. It is burning. And because of that burning, what comes out? Smoke. The blackbirds picking food. Of course, food is being cooked. So while cooking, in the process of cooking, or in the process of washing the utensils, some corns are scattered here and there. And the blackbird means kawa. Have you seen the blackbirds? Now these days, of course, there is the sanctity, there is a scarcity of the blackbirds. We see the blackbirds in less amount, but earlier there were a plethora of blackbirds. And if some of you have not seen the blackbirds, you can see me. The blackbirds picking food. The blackbird is seen picking food in that particular area. Seize thee. Thee means who is there? Seize thee. Thee means the scholar gypsy who is being searched. The blackbird also knows the scholar. Therefore the poet says here, sees thee, nor stops his meal, nor fears at all. Generally you might have seen the blackbird is very active. If you go near it, it flies. It will not allow you to catch it easily. It flies. But here it is not the. Why does it fly? It flies because of the fear. He thinks that he might be harmed, he might be hurt, he might be caught. Therefore, he flies. But here, the case is different. Here, he does not fly. And what to talk of flying, he even does not stop picking his food. He knows the scholar is very gentle. He knows he is a good-natured person. It is not going to harm him. He is not going to harm him. Therefore, he remains busy. He gets on picking his food fearlessly. So often has he known thee past him astray. The scholar is totally known to the blackbird. So many a times he has seen him passing that way without harming him. So the blackbird is very close, or the scholar is very close to the blackbird. The blackbird knows the very nature of the scholar. So he is not at all worried. Why should he be worried about? Whom should he fear? And why should he fear? He is a friendly person. He is a gentleman. He goes on passing that way. He goes on straying that way without harming him. It is why the blackbird doesn't stop eating, does not stop picking his food. He doesn't get panicked. He remains fearless, goes on picking his food, doesn't fly, wrapped, twirling in thy heart a wither prey and waiting for the spark from heaven to fall. The blackbird also knows the very goal of the scholar, the very aim of the scholar. The blackbird knows that the scholar is in a penance, P-E-N-A-N-C-E, tapasya. He has a fixed aim, he has a fixed goal. His ambition is fixed one. The scholar is waiting patiently, P-A-T-I-E-N-T-L-Y, waiting patiently for the spark from the heaven to fall. He is spending his time in that penance for the sake of the humanity. How to make human life happy, how to make human life handsome, how to make human life hilarious, how to lessen, how to mitigate the suffering of human life. Most of our suffering are created by ourselves. We are the creators, we are the masters of most of our sufferings. We create our suffering. No doubt, our stomachs are full, still we fight. We hanker after power and pelf. We hanker after comfortable life, cozy life. And ultimately, we fall ill. We are guided by jealousy, we are guided by selfishness. And hence, we lead a very, very tortuous life. We ourselves sow the seeds of suffering. And of course, when we sow the seed of suffering, of course, we are bound to get the yield of suffering. If we sow the seed of babul plant, we are going to have the thorns. In that particular plant of babul, we are not going to have mangoes. The rich are often seen unhappy, often seen sad, while the poor are seen happy. Why? It is because of the sweet contentment. The poor are satisfied with what they have, but the rich are always after more and more and more and more power, more. How much more? Sometimes in some of the families, people fight without no reason. They fail to respect each other. They humiliate each other. No doubt, we have the fight in some families where there is poverty. They fight there for bread. Suppose there is a family where there is poverty and the bread earner of that particular family is a drunkard. He earns and drinks. He earns and drinks. There, in that family, there is always fighting. There is always cacophony there. Why? Because there is hunger in that family. There is poverty in that family. They are fighting. They are abusing. Because they are hungry. They are fighting for the bread, for the pieces of the bread. But sometimes those families are seen fighting where there is no poverty. There is no scarcity of money, wealth, paisa. Still they fight. There is no hunger there. Their stomachs are fully filled. They have well dresses to wear. They lead a very comfortable life. Still they are fighting. Still they fight. Members of that particular family fight, humiliate, abuse, make the life hellish. Why? What for? What for they fight? It is because they are not satisfied. they lack sweet contentment. There, that fighting where there is hunger, it is easily understood. वह लड़ाई समझ में आती है, वह झगड़ा लड़ाई समझ में आता है. There is a लड़ाई, there is a fighting of भूख, रोटी. That is a लड़ाई of खलिया पेट, खाली पेट. But here, this is the लड़ाई of पेट भरवा लड़ाई. Stomach is full of good meal, good food. So, it is up to us to make either the heaven in life or the hell in life. Both are here. It is a customary that after the death of some particular person, we say Swargiye. It is a courtesy. We do not know. The body is consigned to flame here upon the earth before our eyes, and the soul is invisible. We do not know where does the soul go. Where does it travel? We do not know. We simply guess. But if we create heaven upon this earth in our life, we are bound to enjoy, we are bound to relish the heaven, the life of a heaven upon the earth, that is Swargic life. I am not going to tell Swargiya life, it is Swargic life. Heaven is believed to be a happy place, where there is peace, where there is plethora of happiness. Swargic Jivan. And if we create a hell upon the earth in our life, of course, our life will be hellish one, Narkiya Jivan. It is believed that in hell there is nothing but suffering and suffering and suffering. So even if we have enough money, much wealth, we might be leading a very hellish life. So dear students, that's all for today. In our future classes or in my future videos, I will be explaining to you some more important stanzas of this particular poem, that a particular elegy, the Scholar Gypsy. You are also requested to go through some of the stanzas on your own, and in between you should prepare for other books also. And you know, life is very costly, it is very important. So you must abide by the instructions given to you by the government or by the administration, just to defeat this deadly pandemic. We, the citizens of India, must be abiding the advice, the suggestions given to us by our government or the administration. We must go on making social distancing. We must wash our hands. We must wear masks. And this way also we can show our patriotism, our nationalism, our Deshbhakti. We can serve our country by becoming negative in the sense of corona. So stay home, stay blessed, lead a very happy life. Thank you. God bless you all.
पूरा सुनना पड़ेगा।